Have the elders of the Sudanese community failed the younger generations? See, I was debating doing this video because, I do feel that we should respect our elders always, but if I'm going to examine the younger generations of the black community, we have to examine the older ones too. We can't just totally ignore the older generations. So, yeah, in this video I'm going to go into that question and kind of give my opinion, my opinions and my 2 cents on this issue. So, stay tuned. And I want to clarify too, I'm talking about my personal community. I'm not talking about the entire United States or the world. I'm talking about where I live personally, like my peer groups and who we look to as our elders. So yeah, I want to get that out of the way first before I start this video. So have they failed us as a community, as the elders? Have they failed to guide us into the new world? Have they failed to raise us up and become productive human beings? Yes and no. See, I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's as black as white as that. It's very, to me, it's very a gray area, it's very complicated. So I'm going to quickly name a few points on why I do think they failed us. And after I get those out of the way, I'm going to name or list my reasons as to why they haven't in a way too, So the first reason I think they failed us is sexism. Sexism is very strong in the Sudanese community where I live. And honestly, it's holding us back in so many ways. It's kind of ridiculous that this is still going on in 2019, First of all, I want to make it clear that this misogynistic attitude that I see in a lot of African households today, Sudanese households, these aren't true African values, As I began to study ancient Sudan, ancient Kush, ancient Nubia, what I've come to learn is that there were plenty of female rulers, and a lot of the times too, they were the best rulers. They were the best rulers of the world, Ancient Rome was defeated by an African queen, African queen in Sudan, nonetheless, Queen of Monarinas. She lost an eye in battle against them. And a lot of the times too, the rule was through the woman, it was a very matrilineal society, meaning if men did rule, it was through their mothers, it was through the queen. And if you look at neighboring societies of ancient Sudan, you have the Dahomey, who are the original Amazons. The Amazons weren't a bunch of white women. They were beautiful, strong black mothers. That's what Dahomey means, our mothers, So I don't understand why, well, I do kind of understand, they just don't have the knowledge, Today we have the internet, and that's how I've begun to really gain a lot of knowledge and wisdom, The internet is only 20 years old, and people don't use the internet the way it should be used. We can use the internet to learn everything. Our older communities, they didn't have this. They didn't have the internet. They have to learn from, their parents or textbooks. We have the internet. Everything we could possibly learn is at our fingertips, So I don't blame them for not knowing this, but I do blame them for not trying to change the status quo. Instead of just saying that our women belong in the kitchen and at home raising the kids. It's like, sure, I do believe in traditional African values. I do believe in that mothers are going to be the better parents at raising kids, and they are the best cooks. Let's be real. I love African food, but we can't just limit them to that only. They're very capable too. Everything we can accomplish, they have the possibility too. Like, sure, we naturally are stronger, but that's just genetics. Men are going to be physically stronger. Women are going to be socially stronger, emotionally stronger, more compassionate. It's just how it is, So we can't just be totally sexist and adopt the misogynistic view, which is largely what I've come to find. I'm not 100% sure, so don't fact check me on this, or actually do fact check me on this. But what I've come to find is that we started adopting these misogynistic attitudes when we started getting colonized by the Europeans. So this is not our traditional ways of looking at women. This is very a Eurocentric view of looking at women, So we need to look back at our history and realize that, we're holding our women back in so many ways. There are even studies today that show that African women tend to be the most successful in school. They tend to get the most degrees compared to the rest of society, because we are the minority. We are a minority. And yet we still have the most success. Our women have the most success in colleges, and higher education. So already we gotta start looking at that and stop limiting them and stop, just throwing them in the kitchen and saying, stay here, cook and clean and raise the kids. They can do whatever they want to, I feel like. So that's one way I feel like we've been failed as a young community, particularly the women. This misogynistic attitude towards them, it needs to stop, in my opinion. The second way I feel like they failed us, alcoholism, addiction to alcohol. When I was younger, we used to have a lot of Sudanese parties, like we used to celebrate our people graduating, birthdays, and it was fun. It'd be like every other month there's a party, and when it ended, I couldn't wait for the next party because it was just so fun. It built a sense of community. But as the elders, as the uncles started, using alcohol as a way to relieve their stress from the American lifestyle, which is honestly, it's not a good way to live. The work is meaningless and the pay is crap, but we gotta find ways to overcome this. But what I'm trying to get to is that this really killed the community in so many ways. Slowly but surely, as these parties would go on, as I would age, there would be more fights at every party. It was very disconcerting, because as these fights started to break out more often due to drunk uncles and not knowing how to control, their addiction to alcohol, not knowing how to use it in a healthy manner, locations would stop renting rooms to Sudanese communities in particular. They would ban us from having these locations to celebrate positive things, and it really created a rip in the community. There was one fight in particular that was kind of like the nail in the coffin. Me and my brother, my stepbrother, we were watching the fight through the glass panels, through the glass windows, and this fight was, honestly, I understand why they wouldn't want us at these events anymore, because this was it was honestly like a gang war almost. It was like at least 50 people just fighting for no reason, for absolutely no reason. So I understand why they wouldn't want to rent locations to us, because if the elders of our community, and this is primarily I think this is like 30-year-olds, late 20-year-olds, how can we be expected to be allowed to celebrate these locations? This is how we celebrate, And as I noticed that these parties stopped happening altogether, we stopped being a Sudanese community and started being Sudanese people living in the white man's community. And that's not how it should be. We need to come together first as black Sudanese people and then integrate with white man's society, because we can't just shun them. That's not how it works. This is a white man's world in America. They are the majority. We can't just act like we can't just do our own thing. We have to come together first and show them that, we can live alongside you guys. We can integrate. We can build something here, So that's the second way I feel like we've been failed. Alcoholism and demonizing marijuana, when we should really look at alcohol and try to, correct the issues. Not that marijuana isn't an issue. I do feel like that can be an issue too. You can get addicted to marijuana, but there's so many benefits to that, and there's so many negatives to alcohol. It's just the disparity is kind of crazy. Why are we focusing on this issue when this is clearly way more? It's just way more toxic than anything else that I've seen in the Sudanese community. We need to focus on this primarily. So that's the second reason. The third way I feel like they failed us is the parenting styles. And this is kind of more of a cultural issue, an African culture issue. African culture does not translate well to American culture. America is all about freedom and being progressive, trying to change the world in a new way. We can't get stuck in the old African ways of teaching kids, physical abuse, sexism, things like that. We can't get stuck in that way of, I'm African, so this is how I'm gonna teach my kids. This is just the way it is. No, it's not how the way it is anymore. Those were the old ways, and they still have a place in today's world. I'm not trying to totally shun that type of way of being. I feel like there are gems still in those teachings. I learned respect through that. This is how I got raised, And white people, I'm not trying to come at them, but the way I was raised, which is very traditional African values, it taught me respect. So I don't want to totally be like there's nothing there for us. No, Africans know how to teach their kids respect, but in today's world, things like physical abuse and sexism is not working anymore. We need to drop those values and look for new ways of teaching our kids values, pretty much. Because now, if you try to hit your kids, they can call the cops on you and you're locked up now, or you lose your kids. things like that can happen and do happen. We need to acknowledge that and look for new ways of teaching our kids values, teaching them honor, teaching them respect. Talk to your kids, learn English, and have your kids learn Arabic. A lot of the times it's hard to communicate with each other because we don't even speak the same language. I came to America when I was 2 years old. I forgot most of Arabic, I forgot the Munya, I don't even know any Dinka at all. So it's like, how can I even communicate with my parents? How can I teach them? Or how can I not teach them? How can I show them what I've been learning? And now I want to kind of play the devil's advocate here and see from their perspective and kind of take the perspective of how they haven't failed us. First of all, we gotta understand that African culture and tradition is very different than American tradition. It just doesn't translate well, and a lot of the times they're totally stressed out too. They're learning how to adapt to a new culture. They're learning how the American political system works, how the American economical system works, which it doesn't work. The American economical system does not work at all. There's a reason why every 10, 20 years there's a recession or a depression. It just doesn't work. So they're still adapting. We as a culture are still adapting to America. So of course they're not going to be able to totally raise us in a perfect way. We are first generation refugees. We're still learning how to live in this new land. We also got to look at the state of Africa today, where we came from. Africa has been ravaged by colonialism. We came from a place of war, so obviously it's not like we had the knowledge that we used to have back in the day. When you look at how Africa is, how it turned out the way it did today, it goes back to colonialism and how they targeted the elders, they targeted the spiritual leaders, they targeted the people who had the knowledge, who were entrusted with teaching the kids and the young adults the wisdom. So they went for the spiritual leaders. They went for the people who had the knowledge and knew how to raise the kids properly. They knew, they targeted those people. So of course we're gonna lose parts of our culture and adopt their culture because this is all we know now. There wasn't internet 100 years ago. Internet is very new. Internet is changing the world right now. There wasn't there wasn't Wikipedia 100 years ago. It's just like now, okay, they killed them, so now we got to do our best. So they're doing their best. We got to understand that the intentions are right. The intentions are good. It's not like they want to fail us. And that this is why I say they have failed us in certain ways, but at the same time they haven't, because the intentions are still good. The intentions are still to raise, beautiful young black children who are productive and who can go on to raise their beautiful young children to be productive, So that's why I say that it's a very black and white issue. It's very complicated. There's a lot of little nuances and complications that, it's a very gray area. And I want to end this video on a really positive note. No matter what you think about the elders, we have to respect them. This video is not an excuse for us young people to be like, oh, the reason why, the way we are today is because the elders didn't teach us anything. No, they taught us a lot of things. It's just that the way American culture works and African culture works, they're like opposites. It's like hot and cold. It's black and white. We got to learn how to move in this new energy, in this new land. So no matter what, always respect the elders. Always have respect for those who came before us. You can only learn certain things through experience, through wisdom, through age, and they have that. We have the internet, so that's why I'm trying to put knowledge on the internet and kind of help our community this way, but they have the wisdom, they have the age, they have the experience, so no matter what, always respect them. Don't take this as an excuse to, be ignorant and blame them for all of our problems. A lot of our problems we cause them too, let's be honest. I'm young, and I'm not totally wise all the time. I'm only like 20 years old, so of course I can mess up and do stupid things and make mistakes too, but yeah, I think that's probably it for the day. So I hope this kind of shines a light on the African community, the Sudanese community, and helps us grow in new ways and not repeat the mistakes that I've seen growing up, So like, subscribe, comment. Ubenu out.